Welcome back, friends, enemies, ladies, gentlemen, and others. So, I just wanted to kind of talk about some frameworks for thinking about your life. And I wanted to preface this by saying there is so much of a hope that you will be a mindless consumer drone nowadays. And it's not even a conspiracy to say that. We allow so many chemicals and everything. Everyone's pushing AI. Everyone's trying to disenfranchise voters, at least in my country, that is. So I think it's really important to think about something. And I notice it's very much not glamorized to do so. If you say you're trying to be mindful or make an effort to do something, people tend to think less of you for that. And that sucks. So I wanted to preface this by saying, there were times in my life I felt like I was fumbling. And I asked myself, how can I have a high value mindset? And my friends would warn of the adjacent indoctrination pipelines that come with looking up how to be a high value man or high value woman, or look at your feminine or masculine energy. But I knew that I wanted to make some changes, and I didn't want to look back on a time I was already not really living it up and I was wasting my time. So I just got to preface this by saying I think anything you start doing is the right thing. I'm vegan, but I just recently went vegan. If you go paleo, you know, and you're morbidly obese and you're not, you're eating let me I was gonna say, no, I do promote veganism, I can't lie. But I was gonna say, if maybe you can't be perfect yet, but you can do something better, it's a start. I hate the influence in the gym community where they're like, oh, if you're not lifting, what are you doing? Like a video of middle-aged moms jumping on a trampoline and everyone's saying, this isn't a workout. Sure it is. Start somewhere. And this is a big lesson I've learned in life. You've got to meet people where they're at. You've got to seek to find common ground and connection. I think it's very chic to indicate your individuality in America by saying, I don't like that. That's cringe. That's stupid. But at the end of the day, we're all going to have to coexist with each other. And I think our fierce individualism in America is what's leading us to be completely separate people. We don't know our neighbors because they don't look like people we'd be friends with based on the clothes they wear. And so I really encourage you guys to kill your cringe. I think in some aspects, I try my best to be authentic, whatever that means for me. And that's a really high frequency to vibrate at. I actually made notes for this video. And one of them is identity, aka being a fake vegan. My friends called me out for this when I ate something, my vegan friends, that was not vegan. But they were explaining to me something that I believed in strongly, which is it's very important to have consistency with what you are. And I'll go as far to say that this is not going to be celebrated by a lot of people. I think there's times you also need to know when you're being a fanatic and when you're losing people by being so much trying to go against the grain. But I think in general, you've got to somewhat have an identity. And this can be something that's going to help you a lot if you're trying to achieve a new goal. So for me, when I started lifting weights, I had no desire to be in the gym, but I understood that I needed a cute workout set to do it. And I'm not trying to give you, the consumerist BS here, but when I went vegan, I noticed too, it really helped to just go cold turkey. It gets to a point where sometimes all or nothing can be beneficial, and go off of what works for you. For me, I'm a very intense person. If I like something, I want to go full stream ahead to it. Maybe you're not like that. Maybe, slowly weaning yourself off of a bad habit is going to help you achieve that goal. But a big thing I've learned is that, kind of having a new identity will often help you achieve what you're doing. And so, I've often felt embarrassed in the past. I'll do a hobby for 12 years and say, oh, I do it a little bit. I don't know. But I've learned now, if you start a hobby on day one, call that your identity. Now, don't get the dopamine from the thing before you do it. Don't tell everyone I'm on a weight loss journey on day one, maybe, because that might kind of give you that satisfaction of change without seeing it happen. But if it's something like lifting weights, I highly recommend, and this is an atomic habit, identify with the habit. So yes, I lift weights daily. I eat a vegan diet, things where they focus on the action. For teachers and parents, they say give children feedback on what they did versus who they are, because who they are might be a set thing, but you can always give someone feedback on the choices they make. A thing I've reflected on this summer a lot too is how love is a choice. You know, if you're in a relationship and it sucks, are you not loving them fully, or are they not loving you fully? I reflect back on a lot of relationships, and I think the problem was that I was embodied and I was in tune with feelings and they were not, you know? And I want you to be very much honest. One thing I've felt a lot this summer too is emotions in the body. So, like, if I'm with someone and there's a conflict, that makes me tense. You know, if I'm with someone and my shoulders are back, I'm laughing, I'm sitting funny, I notice how much in my nervous system I feel secure. And I noticed there were times in my life I was in a negative relationship, a negative workplace, and my skin was bad. I was, you know the whole spiel. It's always typically women saying, "Oh, I got ugly in this relationship." But you see the physical toll that your conditions take on your body. And another thing I really want to emphasize for you guys is like, don't get stuck in things you don't have to be in, you know? Like anytime, I want you to think water that flows stays fresh. Water that is stagnant becomes dirty and toxic. Let your life be like this water, okay? Don't sit in the same thing too long, because the moment you're sitting, you're getting stagnant and toxic. There's relationships I'd be in the past where it felt like, why would I get dressed up? Why would I go out? You know, and I want you to sit and audit your life. My favorite thing to say, audit your life. Like for me, as people point out, I struggle to stay clean. So whenever I go away for a little while or do something cool, I try to remind myself that I always have the autonomy to make a change on a daily basis. I always have the autonomy to spend 30 minutes doing something that's going to make me a better me. And that's another thing too, you know, get out to the best of your ability. That might look like, again, joining a new group where it's part of your identity, or putting on your best outfit and going out with the intention of going out. Like, I'm going to talk to people tonight. I'm going to observe my surroundings. I'm not going to be on my phone the whole time, you know? Sometimes taking pictures can be a good thing. Like, oh, we're going to go take pictures and it gives you a reason to dress up. Other times it's negative. I often don't like taking photos of like myself at places. I'd rather take photos of what's going on so I can remember it. So being mindful, like, I want you guys to understand the levels of life are very much a hierarchy of needs. And a lot of us are not getting the basic ones met. But a lot of us are making excuses why we can't be kind of maximizing the others. With that being said, another thing I wanted to say is go hang out with other people. Do it. Hang out with new people, you know? If you have a partner especially, or like a roommate or a close friend, you know, I'm kind of a loner, so I find this one helpful, but if you do, it's going to be helpful for you to go bounce your personality off of others, reflect it like a mirror, and see what things you like about them and what you don't, because you can take and leave things about other people. So one thing I like about myself is I try really hard to be a safe space for others, and it's a lot deeper than that for me. Like, I want to genuinely be almost this emotional couch they can rest on. And I don't mean that I open myself up to be trauma dumped upon, but I think that there are so many times that I was walking around with so much anger to myself and I didn't know why. And it's so hard to do anything meaningful or build an identity from that rock bottom. And so if I can kind of talk some love into someone else's life where they might not have known that's an option, you know, that could create crazy waves. So I find in general that moving with love, moving with peace, curiosity, energy, I think those things are going to make others feel better and they're going to make you feel better. And I encourage you to not fall into negative, self-fulfilling prophecies. Don't be so aware of all the things that could go wrong that you're kind of ignoring the things that are going right. I was recently listening to the audiobook of Neville Goddard. I hope I'm saying that right. And he was talking about the power of the subconscious mind. And he was basically saying anything that you put your attention on is kind of already happening, you know? Anything you're avoiding, you're confronting head on. You're just not getting it done, you know? And I think this is a very important mindset. Quite literally, you know, to some extent at least, manifestation is true because look at me in this house, for example. If I say, oh, it's so messy, I can't clean it up, I don't have what I need. If I had a nicer house, I could keep it nicer. But on the positive side, I could say, look how many clothes I have, look how much makeup I have. Like, this is beautiful, I'm blessed. And I'm going to start walking around and playing with those objects and really enjoying what I have versus kind of laying in bed, hiding from it, you know. And I think we all have an insecurity. One thing too that I find that makes me feel a little woker than people sometimes is again, you know, not understanding where people are at. You got to understand we're all at different places psychologically because none of our lives follow the same trajectory. And with that being said, I think it never helps to like talk down to others because we all have something about us that is stupid, you know? And my biggest struggle to so many people is nothing, but then theirs is nothing to me. So I think it's important to meet everyone with compassion because that's the best you can do wherever you may be to meet them at that moment, if that makes sense. Let me check my notes and see what else I was talking about. One of my friends told me, I asked him why his house was so cool, and he told me, I never settle. And I think that's a really good mantra for life. I really love that. And it's funny because it'll be things you thought were good for you that sometimes you are settling in. You know, I've been in a lot of relationships where I was like, I love this person to death. They can do no wrong, but they are doing all the wrong in my life right now, you know? And same with jobs, habits, whatever it may be. And I want you to look at your habits from the lens of like, you know, I think when we're young, our consciousness really comes from maybe the law or our parents or the school where it's like, ooh, would they catch me doing this? And sometimes that makes it seem more cool and exciting and evil. But what things would like a close friend monitor in your daily life? For me, I'm blessed to have people that care about me and they make it clear sometimes if I'm, you know, doing an unhealthy habit that it's not healthy and I shouldn't do it. But if you don't have that, be that for yourself. And that's some of the best advice I can give anyone. I really feel like this is all over the place. And my old roommate used to say, you know, everything we need is easy, but people just don't have the tools to access it or to process it. So I really have changed my life listening to a lot of podcasts. And I find maybe something I need to develop a knack for is the more people break things down into detail and you listen to it, it's going to start to register. You know, for me, I understood as a young child, I'd wonder, why is witchcraft a thing people even talk about? And I understand now that anything you put that much focus on is going to work, point blank, period. If I say, you know, oh, I am vegan, I'm going to start trying new restaurants. I'm going to start eating more vegetables. If I say I want to go vegan, I'm subtly affirming daily that I am not yet what I wish to be. You know, wish to be is immediately invalidating the whole path. And that's what Neville Goddard says about the subconscious. Like, just go ahead and start living like you're that. So I really recommend the power of identity, the power of resonating with the things you do and saying, oh, I'm not the kind of person that does that, even if it's only been you for a day, you know? And that's why I think too, there's so much emphasis nowadays. We know it takes a toxic level with things like skinny talk or looks maxing. But I used to preach in my old videos the power of looks maxing, and I only did that because I was aware it was a means with which you can kind of self-actualize. So you notice sometimes your favorite outfit or things of that nature might make you feel more powerful. You know, I think that's a whole other thing. I find it pretty elementary. To me, it's wear what you want, do what you need, you know? I like dressing kind of androgynous sometimes. There's settings I find looking more hyper feminine will be a benefit to me and I'll get treated better. And I would mention this a lot in my earlier YouTube videos, you know, but other times I feel more comfortable just dressing kind of neutral. And, you know, research what works for you. I would say too, like, I'm gonna go ahead and hold your hand and pet your head and say, don't freak out about stuff too much, but do be on a path. It doesn't, again, it does not quite matter what that path is, but make sure you're on a path. Pick one. Don't let it be the fig tree where all the figs rot in your hand because you can't make up your mind. I think the average American, and it's so toxic. Oh, that scared me. I thought that was like a bug. Is it a bug? No, it's not. I have such a phobia of bugs, and I've seen so many lately because it's been summer. So that threw me all the way off. Thank you. Anyway, I already know I'm about to get a comment talking about hold your comments. Hold your comments. I do not have But anyways, I was just gonna say, don't let things freak you out too much. Pick a person you want to be and be that person. For me, you know, I'd meet people and they would say certain things and I'd be like, yeah, I want to start saying that, or I want to start dressing like this or going to this place. Do it. And there will be people in your life that are flawed. And I hope that you have the discernment to literally take the parts that are good and leave the ones that aren't. You know, if you have a friend that's a really good going out friend, but they're not really that great, go out with them, have fun. You know, it's not that deep. You're here to enjoy. But don't make that person like your BFF that you confide in if they seem like not that solid, you know? Take, and I say this advice to myself because there were so many chapters of my youth that felt stupid. Like, you know, when you're young and you get in a relationship for like 2 years and it's just like on your mind all the time and you can't get it off your mind. I asked myself, why did I do that? But the answer is it's an important part of development, you know? But ask yourself, what things are you doing now that you might look back on that are stupid? And that's my real banger advice. I hope you made it to this point in the video because, for example, if I go, especially like on a vacation or hang out with other people more, I start to see my personality bouncing off of their tendencies. So it might be something like, oh, why am I living like this? Or why am I not doing this? Or why am I doing this? You know? And I will say too, like the caution to all of this is don't let things get you that bad. And that takes practice. It takes time. But I am at a point where I affirm I like who I am. I do what is the best. A friend of mine gave me advice like, go with your gut, do what you think is right, you know, because you can never please all of the people around you and it's pointless to try. So do what you want and then you'll get people who are meant to be in your life anyway, you know? Times I've gone out and I was like dancing a lot and I felt like I looked super stupid. That introduced me to people that I was meant to meet, you know, the energetic people, the positive people. If you're sitting like this, you know, when I was in college, I felt like so many people there were like that. Like it was a contest who's the coolest and most nonchalant. And I noticed that those people would, they would gravitate towards each other, but it's like, congratulations, you all want to be the main character and you got a group of people who all think they're the main character. They think everyone else is an NPC and they're all doing nothing together and they all need the whole sheep herd to make a plan for the night, you know? So I want you to know that like you're gonna meet people in life who are gonna make you doubt who you are. And even people I love, you have got to run a strict program. You've got to be a little selfish. Every person I love has traits I admire and probably a few that I don't want for myself. And that may or may not even mean that there's something wrong with them or it's the wrong thing to do. It might just not be what I resonate with. Can I be vulnerable for a second? My whole life I've been like an energetic, positive. I love to make jokes. Like I love to make people laugh. And there were so many times I was not incentivized to be like that. And now at my whopping ripe old age, I've accepted I like who I am. And I'd rather be around people that are recharged by my energy and recharge it, you know? And I really cannot stress that enough. like, be around people who push you out of your comfort zone, but don't be around people who, like, make you feel like the person you are sucks, you know? And I think I'm really sensitive about myself because I've been all I had in a lot of situations, and not in a bad way, just like I think you got to have a sense of self and be kind of a loner to get anything accomplished in this life. You can't be for everyone. You can't be the sheep herd mentality, people waiting for something to happen. I mentioned this in my last video, but I went to a thing and I was like the first person to dance, and it was embarrassing. I mean, no one is going to be like, you go, girl, but it's like, you got to live your life. You're here to have fun. When I'm sitting on a plane and I'm all alone, I think really traveling puts it into perspective because you're out of your physical visual stimuli of all that you are. And you ask yourself, what am I really when nothing is here? You know, take off the diamonds, take off the foo-foo, whatever they say. But yeah, like, what are you really? And I plot on this, and I think, when I meet new people, when I'm in new situations, what do I like about me? And don't give that up for anyone. There's so many times I've tried to, like, just not be who I was, and I don't know why, because your temperament, you're here to improve it and indulge in it, so don't let people throw away the you that you are. There, it's like once girls get a boyfriend, their social media changes. They start, like, posting less. And I've even gotten in fights with people before over, like, not wanting them to have my social media because I didn't want them to see how embodied I was in myself. And that's like, why are you hanging out with that person, And it really is that deep, because the people you're around are influencing what you think is normal, what you look up to, and hey, some people might be a good example of what not to do, but maybe don't make that like your top best friend that you're hanging out with. Another thing I wanted to say that I have written out is chill out with items. I've been traveling a lot. I have not had all my items. It makes it abundantly clear which items you need and which ones are pointless. I've noticed, like, it's really nice to have products I can kind of keep in a tote bag and just dip out whenever I want and go visit friends or go surf or something. I don't need all that crap I thought I did. I do not. So that's just a simple one. One thing I wrote was go vegan. I wrote it really incoherently, but go vegan. And the reason I say that is, first of all, go vegan. But second off, do something new. If it's not going vegan, can you start going to the gym daily? Can you start maybe taking a walk around the block 2 times a week? Can you start cleaning for 30 minutes a day? But do new things, and it's not just because it's good to have a path and a habit's good for you and it expands your mind and helps your soul and your physical accomplishments on this earth, but, like, do something that's going to shake up your perspective. For me, going vegan is the recent one. I would say about a year ago when I started this channel, it was going to the gym. But do something that's going to elevate your perspective of who you are and make you realize there's levels to this. You're not accomplishing everything you could. Now that I've gone vegan, I realize, like, how often I was eating a vegetable was completely unacceptable. I've started caring about things that I was just exempting myself from caring about. And I think you'll find that if you get a new goal, it's going to push you out of your comfort zone. And it doesn't even matter as much about the goal itself. It matters that you're establishing your identity as a person that matters and a person whose time matters. When I was, like, really, really single, really, really isolated, just focusing on the gym, I noticed that the amount of time I put in my self-care routine or, work or academics was giving me a sense of self where I previously did not have one. So, yeah, just like things like that, they're going to help you. And I can sit here all day and say, go vegan, go to the gym, stop smoking, this, that, and the third. But it's like things that you're going to feel when you do it. I can't emphasize enough that, like, everything nowadays, I think it just started pouring rain. Everything nowadays is like no one's going to validate you whatsoever. And if you get validation on social media or, female gaze, male gaze, you're doing it all wrong. All wrong. I'm sorry to say this, but a lot of people are bozos. And I reflect with horror on how much of my life I've accomplished things, but it's like my advice for how to do that would be very convoluted because no one's going to clap you on the back until you do it. As soon as you, learn a language, go to the gym, change your diet, lose weight, people will say, "Wow, that's crazy." But they weren't watching you get up and look ugly and do it on the hard days. That's a level of consistency that's like terrifying to people. Like they cannot fathom it. So I want you to understand at the end of the day, it's what you spend your hours in the day doing. Like it's not about, oh, I thought about it or I posted it on social media. At the end of the day, you got to put that phone down and you got to like go do. And I think kind of the emphasis of my video is do anything. Like my roommate and I used to joke and say, do something. Like, people are in these situations and it's like, well, just take action, do something. Don't sit there and do nothing. And yeah. And make sure the something is a smart something. Don't do a something that's going to hurt you years to come. Don't pick up a bad habit that's going to screw you in the future. But yeah, you'd be surprised how change is positive and it never feels good until it does. But yeah, I was going to say too, I put on the top of it, go to that thing and make new friends. Cause most of the people I've met, and I think with social media, we've eliminated a lot of the random chance of meeting some cool new person. You're like expecting, like you're scrolling to meet them, but nothing can replicate the absolute kismet of meeting someone spontaneously in a situation. And I think it's going to make your interaction that much better. I always emphasize to people, like, everyone wants to make friends nowadays. Everyone wants to socialize. If people look at you crazy for socializing or trying to make conversation, they're dumb. But another thing I tell myself too is like, they're probably terrified and shy because nobody ever talks to them, so they don't have anyone to do that. And B, how beautiful that you are here still seeking to connect with others despite all things considered. At the end of the day, I've developed a pretty intense self-love when I previously had none because I was quite jaded and miserable. And it's like, do you want to be around someone like that? Like, I think the most important thing you got to ask yourself is, would I want to experience me? And at the end of the day, I think so many of us have insecurities about how we look, how we act, things that are really quite stupid. And when I'm around my friends, I think about how often they smile, how often they treat someone with kindness, if they have the courage to go try something that scares them, if they have, cool traits to show me and share with me. Like, it's not as deep as you would think it is. So build self-love by looking at yourself through an omniscient lens, like you're another person. Would I want to experience me? Become a person you would want to experience. And I think sometimes giving into the dogma of things you like making your life an altar of things you like, is going to make it good. But also being mindful of like, not everything I like is helping me be my best me, if that makes sense. Don't fight who you are, flow with it, I notice the more frustrated I get with anything, it's been really beneficial to kind of say that to people and say, I need a moment. I feel overstimulated. They taught us in elementary school, I feel, when you, because. And putting that out to the universe is always going to help you. Like saying, mentally, I feel overwhelmed at work because a lot is going on. It makes me want to cheat on my diet or smoke a cigarette or whatever it is you're trying to quit. Don't do that. Um recently I had to do a really hard research assignment, and I was like starting to binge eat snacks again, which is a thing I used to struggle with a lot, like way before I made this. I went to the gym and I just kind of said, wait a minute, what do you need? And I decided that like a nap might be a good cozy reset, getting under the covers. And I did that. And then I woke up, I went to the gym, and I felt better. But you got to understand, like, this controls this. It's not the other way around. It don't let it be. And I think everything takes resistance. And with AI and algorithms and social media, they are genuinely making us incapable of changing our own reality, when in fact the whole reason we are alive is to change our reality, to put ourselves in situations and to experience things. So yeah, that's really all I have to say. Stay dope, stay amazing, stay hydrated, go vegan, be nice to your friends, be a person you're proud of, be the person you wish you had at the worst time in your life. And I hope you can look at yourself and see all the inside jokes, all the struggles you've had, all the cool things you have about you. And if you don't love yourself, I want you to dig deep and scrape out, the way your mother held you as a baby, the music you like, the hard times you've been through, the things you laugh to yourself about that nobody can understand. It is so beautiful you're here, and this does all matter. The more you give a crap, the more the crap will give you.